तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु ओम शांति शांति शांति। प्रथम महाकाय सूर्यकोटिसमप्रभा निर्विघ्नं कुरु मे देव सर्वकार्येषु सर्वदा। गुरु ब्रह्मा गुरु विष्णु गुरुदेव महेश्वर गुरु साक्षात् परब्रह्म तस्मै श्री गुरवे नमः. Let me share the screen a bit. Can you all see the screen?
Yes.
Okay, wonderful. Right. So let's start again. Today, what we're going to be speaking about is the Tirtha Yatra, the major places we go to for various reasons. We will discuss all the details about that. But before we go there, right, one of the most important thing about dharmic tradition is there's an aspect of it which is individualistic, which a lot of it is individualistic, but it is also has a lot of social practices. It's not just about a belief. It's not about a belief, but you will also be able to experience. So to be able to experience something, you have to have a social practice. And so that is very important. And like has been said here, dharma has to be held. Dharma itself is something that upholds. Dhriyate dharma also, dharane also. So, but it needs some vessel, some kind of way to practice and be able to experience all this. So that is what we'll be talking about today. Those are the topics. And then one of the things that people mention is that dharma this is a typical bunch of tactics taken, I should say, criticisms. And you won't believe what happened was early when the first Europeans came, they up to the 1700s, even up to the early 1800s, they were very positive because the society they could see what the society they had in Europe kind of matched what was in India. So they were very positive. But by the middle 19th century, everything changed. India had really fallen economically. Europe had gone up very high. So the gap between India and Europe was very high. And so at that point, also there was also political situation where the first 1857 revolt, the first war of independence happened. So based by that time, the negative portrayal of the Hindu traditions started significantly, and it became rampant everywhere. So, but if you were to go read some of the books from the 1700s, late 1700s, you get a different feel. Okay. Now, what are the practices that are needed? These are typically, I think almost all of us on this call here are very familiar with most of these things. Kirtan, singing. I'll tell you, this is one of the most unique aspects of the Hindu tradition is singing, right? The major other religions do not like singing. They do not respect singing. Singing is not followed in many of the major religions. Even in churches, the use of the organ was allowed, but not actually singing. A lot of the singing that we see now is fairly very recent. Probably, I would say even 100 years or less, much less, right? So in that sense, it's the uniqueness of the Hindu tradition where you can sing, and singing is a part of the Hindu tradition. So Kirtan is very important. The next thing that you will see is Yagna. Yagna is the Vedic traditions, right? Very old, extremely old. I would say, maybe minimum 5,000 years old, or maybe, much more older. Yagna is basically an offering to the devatas, right? So that is what we have. That we all probably know. Then, of course, all the mandirs which go to major mandirs across India, across the subcontinent, and now across the world. We will discuss that about all the Tirtha Yatras we should do. Then an extremely important aspect is also puja at home. So it's not just we go to the temple, but we also can do puja at home. So at the end of the day, I think we have kind of discussed this earlier. There are two. The devata could be with akar or without akar. So we can have our ishta devata and do the worship at home. And now, second, then the concept of japa, counting. Counting, you have the beads. You have seen the sadhus do this all the time. And one very important aspect is you can count not just with the beads, but with your fingers, right? You have your fingers, you have the markings on your fingers here, like here. So you can start counting, and this is generally used also when they do. So you can start from the Anamika side. You can go through in the circle, and you can get 10 or 12. People do it very differently. So you could use these also for counting. So if you don't have the japamala also, you can do japa just by using the marking on your fingers. Then, of course, satsang. where is it, getting together with like-minded people, being able to worship, do the japa, do the kirtan in a group. Extremely important aspect. Then Swadhyaya. Swadhyaya initially meant also Vedic tradition, Vedic recitation. And now it is also studying the various scripture. You could read the Puranas. I will tell you that's one of the best things that could be done is reading a Purana, because Puranas have got, have got their own magic to them. Or these days, stutis, stotras, everything. If you can do Swadhyaya, Swadhyaya, that means study of the tradition. Then, of course, yoga, meditation, this again, it's much more common these days. And if you tell kids, they're more probably will be able to, associate with yoga and meditation. Then Tirtha Yatra. Tirtha means generally, they used to be at Tirtha Yatra, all the major temples location, they would generally be near villages or mountains. In fact, this is again very old. So even in the Dharma Shastras, there are references how there would be temples, intersection of roads, there would be a tree or a small temple put up, and then how people had to come, they would rest there, they would do a pradakshina and then leave. So all the practices we have, right, are extremely old, and they are very natural. They're very developed over years. They've all been documented well. So if anybody says that there's no structure to the Hindu traditions, that's wrong. Right? We have this documentation, and a lot of people, it's so very natural, it's ingrained into the Hindu people, and you will see this across the world. Right? So many of these spiritual practices we follow today, and I think we should expose ourselves and the people around us to this. Yagna probably takes a little bit more time, right, to be able to prepare and do it. But a kirtan is singing, doing a japa, doing your adhyaya, and doing in swadhyaya, right, is very straightforward and simple, and we should definitely be able to do it. So if we can do it ourselves, and I found it like, when I've done, I'm not extremely should I say regular, but when I do it, it's definitely helped me. Okay, so please make sure that these are the various ways, all the practices we have, and I think this is very important to convey to all the people when you present or when you teach, that these are all the various ways you can do it, and it just doesn't have to be one boring way. Okay, very important. And then again, this we have in Vedanta something called Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana, but similarly, what are the 9 ways of approaching the Devata, of God? Shravana, listening to the scriptures. Smarana, always thinking about the Devata. Specifically when it comes to the Bhakti tradition, these are all very important. And this is very important to do at a young age. Then, for example, Kirtana, singing we discussed, Smarana, remembering Devatas, always having one very ways, always I try to do is when we give examples, being able to give an example from a Mahabharata or a Ramayana, right? We will say, think like a Herculean task, so then you're remembering Hercules, correct? So why don't you remember Bhagiratha, right? So you can easily use these words in English also. Bhagiratha effort, your kid will ask, what is that, right? And so Bhagiratha brought the Ganga down, so it is much, huge effort was there. And it took so many lives, so many lifetimes. So you can bring these things. So many times you should be able to, when you, Smarana just does not mean always thinking about in that sense, but again, when you give examples, when you talk, we can give these examples, right? From the Mahabharata, from the Ramayana, that will be fantastic. So then Archana, worshipping, Kirtana, singing, Vishak, and Pada Sevana, being able to say puja at home, surrendering oneself to the Devata. Then again, example of Hanuman and Rama, then Sakya, Sudhama, or even and Krishna, or Arjuna and Krishna. And then finally, total surrender. So I'll tell you, many of us, we are not able to do it. And for a long time, I used to think that, what is bhakti as much valuable? And then as I've grown older, I've seen people who are in that mode. So it may not work for everybody, but for a lot of people, it does work. For the majority of the people, it does work. And so that's one of the beautiful things about the Hindu tradition, is all these various ways of expressing how your own behavior, or training oneself and acting upon. And I think that is the extremely important aspect. So when we present to other people, we should bring all these various aspects. It's like almost like multiple options. Which one would you prefer? Whatever you choose, right? And you can do it the right way, and you can do it your way, but in the right traditional way, knowing there are steps, there are paths you can take, and it's not like you do anything you want, but there are all these options are available, you'll follow a path. And so that's the most beautiful aspect of our Hindu tradition. So we should make sure that we bring these values out to all the whoever we interact with, and whenever we speak about the Hindu tradition. Okay. And then Archana Puja. So when it's an important aspect here. When we do all this puja, like we said, one of the main things is there is a Sakar with the Akar or Nirakar, right? The Nirakar Devata exists. So when what we are doing is we are actually invoking the Devata to come. So whenever when we do a puja to a murti, or when we put a kalasha and on a coconut and stuff like that when we do a puja, what we are doing is we are invoking the Devata to manifest itself. We say it's actually manifest its abhimana, or into that whatever we are doing the puja for. So, and then what we do is, once it's as if the Devata is coming, then we will have a Shodasha Upachara Puja, or the 16 steps. It's almost like taking care of a guest. You'll offer water, you'll clean the place, you'll offer a chair, you'll offer fruits. There are 16 steps. Okay? We don't have to go through all those 16. But when you do a puja, those are the mantras that are said are clearly those. You invoke, the Devata has come, so you will do the Archana and the Puja. So in a sense, sometimes we use the word worship, but here we are actually, the manifestation of the Devata is there already. So we are going to do this Shodasha Upachara Puja, an extremely important aspect. And so I think one of the things we should do is explain this to our children when we go to a temple. Look, this is how we think. That is why when there's a temple, there are actual regular puja has to be done. It's not as if, you just close and go away. So once you build a temple, it means the Devata lives there. So even at home, when you have got a puja mandir, right, you should be able to make sure you take care of it properly. It's not like, I'll do anything as I want. It should not be there. So these are the important principles that we should know. Any comments, feedback so far, what we have done, what we have spoken about? Okay. And then again, Japa and Kirtana. Japa, like, as we said, means chanting of generally it used to be, you can, the way that you're taught a mantra, but if you have a guru, or the names of Bhagavan, the Vishnu Sahasranama or Lalita Sahasranama, anything you can chant, or even read the Bhagavatam, could be done. Japa can be done, you can loudly, you can read. I will tell you, sometimes my father used to read loud when we were kids. And so I used to think, why is he, it was not, hey, we are going to study kind of things. But now I remember, I really appreciate that he did that, because I remember many of the mantras he would say, right? So it can be done loud, and especially at home, please let everybody know. And, specific part of the time, if you at least listen to Japa, or at least turn on the specific music and Kirtana, then that will be very good for the house. And then, like I mentioned earlier, manifestation of Hindu tradition. This is the only tradition in which music is also considered, plays such high value. If, for example, I'll tell you, I heard the Dalai Lama, he doesn't listen to music, he doesn't go, right? But because he's a monk, he's a sannyasi, which is fine. But for us, for the Gruhasthas, it's very important that the musical tradition we follow, and have some way of listening to music, listening to kirtans. These are very important aspect, and this is also very important way in which your kids, the next generation, also can learn music. So there are certain you have to be careful also, because a lot of songs come through Bollywood these days. However, the problem is focusing on the lyrics of it. They're not really great. So it's a kind of important to teach your kids to listen to the lyrics, listening to the message that is coming through, and not just the melody. But like I mentioned earlier, it's very important for us. We kind of teach and inform other people about Japa and Kirtana aspects and all the music that goes with it. Okay. So, like I mentioned earlier, huge numbers of people, it's not just, huge numbers of people are influenced by this. I have seen at the temple, people come, they've never experienced a mantra, they've not experienced the, satsang that happening, the music. And also it's very different. because when the mantras by themselves mean very differently. It's not like just singing any song. So when people understand it, they're really influenced, specifically, from outside the tradition who understand it, they really respect it. So it's extremely important for us to speak of all the advantages. Dementia, as you grow older, specifically even in the now here in the United States, there are now third generation, maybe Hindu Americans. There are people in their 70s and 80s. The rich food of the United States, we don't know how it's affected us, whatever. So we have to make sure that we bring these aspects to our older generation, and then also help the younger people understand this. Reverse physical disease like dementia, right? If somebody, imagine an older person being able to sing, it will bring great joy to their life. Same way, same thing, memory, being able to remember stotras. And then also negative emotions, whenever you want everything, maybe when you want to feel angry or when you feel, down, being able to get rid of it. All these are positive aspects, right? Without having to go through the point by point here. It's just makes you a little bit more positive. And in fact, one of the things is it helps. There are many studies also that show this, that people who have this kind of an attitude, how they cope. These are all coping mechanisms. So what I do want to say is these are all positives, tremendous positives physically that we can see, but at the end of the day, again, it is the respect for the devata. So we need to do the puja and japa because it's also part of the tradition. So we should not just reduce it to all these aspects from a physical aspects. It's good to introduce these physical well-being aspects, but this in itself is not complete. So you have to make sure that you have a complete love and affection for the devatas and be able to have that, being able to experience. That is the most important aspects. Okay. Again, Yagna. Yagna is probably the oldest traditions we have in the world now. They will say, what is the age of the Veda? When people ask me, I say, look, at least 5,000 years old. People don't know how old it is, but it is at least 5,000. So Western scholars say something very differently. Even they come up with 3,000 years or so. But at a very minimum, from our perspective, which is very old, it is in an almost different yuga, time of the Rama, time of Bhagavan Ram, maybe, right? So that's how we look at it, and which is perfectly okay. And then we also should make sure that Yagna is about the Agni. Agni is taking all our offerings to the Devatas. So very important. So when we offer this, we'll say things like idam namama, this is not mine, and give it to the devatas. So yajna is very important. And I will tell you again, this is one of our oldest tradition. So in many sense, this is very few other traditions have any practices like this. This makes us unique. We should make sure that we protect this. And please, all of us should support whenever there is something in our local temple. We should definitely support a yajna. And I must say, yajnas are also followed in Japan. They got Homa there also, because a lot of Indian ideas went to Japan through China. So in China, it's there very limited way, but in Japan, they have Yagnas, Homas there, okay? So bottom line, this is a very important aspect. It's an offering to the Devatas. But when you do a yajna, it means it has to be done according to rules. It's much more, should we say, there should be a person who is qualified and be able to do it. Tapas. This is, again, like I said, many of us in the Grihastha we don't follow the tapas of the intense tapas, like a sadhu sannyasi when they've given up and gone to the, maybe a forest or a mountain. But there are lot of vratas that are done. For example, in the south, we have the Ayyappa tradition for 40 days. Lot of young men, they wear only a black cloth. They will walk around without footwear. So they will fast. These are very important. So they and you won't believe, people have told me that it changes them. So these are the many ways that the Indian society, the Hindu society, I should say, has, by giving all these options, they have developed very positive practices. And that's why, relative to a lot of other problems we see in other places, India, in spite of its dramatic poverty we have seen in the past, it doesn't have the kind of breakdowns that we see in many other places. I mean, if you know history, we can understand it. But in spite of all this, we have a society that is pretty fairly well positive, behaves on its own. I'm sure we find a lot of negative things now, but doesn't mean overall, when you say when there are 1.3 billion people, it's an amazingly reliable, resilient society. Okay? And so all these things, tapas, vrata is a very important. You can do it many ways. Basically not eat meat on Tuesdays, or just fasting on a specific day. These are all very important. And then the samskara means refinement. So what happens is, as we age, there are specific refinements we go through. The first thing being when the baby is in the mother's body itself, mother's stomach, there's the simantana in a samskara, then you have the namakarana, then the anna feeding. So there are multiple refinements that happen through the body. And the final one is death. So bottom line is, these are all extremely important practices. And so we, as our own, we can pick many of these. Maybe we'll not be able to do everything, but at least we can pick a few of them and make it part of our lives. And again, like I tell you, when you are a teacher and you're telling other people, make sure you give people these options, and they will pick what is right for them, right? So all these things are doable. And so if you can make sure, hey, look, these are all the ideas, these are the principles, and you can do this, and it will inform you and improve you, then almost all of them will say, yeah, they will be open to it. So a lot of the problems we have is how we present things to the next generation, rather than just trying to force things down. It's making sure that they're exposed to the right ideas, and then giving them the options to kind of choose the right thing, what may be appropriate for them. I think we should be very open to this and kind of give these options. Okay. Again, these are all, like I mentioned earlier, these are the sanskaras. Everything, there are multiple, 16 sanskaras, actually many more, but 16 are the main ones. And it starts again, like I said, at the very beginning itself, when a woman is pregnant, simantona and samskara, it should be done. And I think from then itself, the idea of family and being able to take the child through, becomes very important. Then after the baby is born, the namakarana, then shaving the head, then making sure, you teach something, vidyabhyasa, then annam feeding. All these are amazing. We do it, but if you give some thought to it and have a tradition and a specific practice around it, it is raised, the value of it is raised, rather than doing anything just for its own sake. And then finally is, of course, the cremation. But what I'm saying is, these things we should be aware of, and we should make sure that, we discuss it and we tell people about it, and especially our family and whoever you are teaching also, we should be able to make sure that we bring it out to them and give this full life, the list of sanskaras to be done all through life. Extremely important. Okay. So I think there in the middle, it's probably there was Vishalji's marriage itself. I think that's how I remember it. So far what we have done is, right, we have spoken about all the individual practices one can do. Now, another aspect is festivals. So it's generally, festivals in India have always been in the form of, there are two things that we have to keep in mind. So India has a solar calendar and a lunar calendar, both together. They're called a lunisolar, right? We keep track of both. And because the way the sun goes around, Earth goes around the sun, and the way the moon goes around Earth are slightly off by a bit. So what happens is they keep track of it, and then they bring it together. They call it Adhikamas. So all our festivals have generally follow this solar calendar. And for example, if it is spring, Chaitra is when it becomes, and 9 days later you have Ram Navami. Right? You have so same way now we had Deepavali. Many of these are related to that. The calendar, the lunisolar calendar, and where the sun is, what nakshatra it is. So we have to kind of, I think one practice I am trying to do, not fully there, is to keep track of all the months, so that we are able to keep track of the lunisolar calendar. Otherwise, the calendar we have now is only a solar calendar. So it keeps track of only the sun, and it's only dependent mainly on the sun and not on the moon. Whereas what we have is both. So these festivals that we speak about are all celebrations. And again, this is very different from other religions, right? Very important aspect. So generally music, being happy. There is no negativity. There is no sitting around moping about things. Generally in the Hindu tradition, right? They're all celebrations for almost everything. But at the same time, you should have within ourselves that ekagrata and the mental stability. But practices are all very joyous practices, and I think again, that's an extremely important aspect of the Hindu tradition. And we said if there's an Ekadashi, then fasting. I'll tell you, back in India, there are people, even now, we had a carpenter who would work continuously. I mean, he used to come from Rajasthan, so he would work continuously. And then on Ekadashi, he would, Ekadashi, yeah, of course, he would fast. And then every 15 days, like, Amavasya, he would not work. That's how it used to be. And they still follow it. So it's only now we say we won't work on a Sunday because it's a Sabbath, right? But that's an European influence. In the Hindu traditions, on Amavasya, you don't work. That's how many of the people, practice even today. So we kind of have lost some of these practices, but we can do many of it, follow it ourselves. It's like saying on an Ekadashi, I will not eat, be able to fast. Yeah, again, sorry. I went ahead. I went a little ahead, with this. So celebration, this is a great slide to have. Please make sure you can review it. And then, so the calendar is adjusted because both the lunar calendar and the solar calendar are brought together. And again, like I said, nobody tells people, but people show up for the Kumbh. I mean, what a magnificent festival tradition that is, going for many thousands of years. I've never been to a Kumbh, and that is on one of my wishes, is to be able to go to the Kumbh and see all the sadhus there. Okay. I don't know, anyone here, any questions on this? Has anyone been to the Kumbh here? I'm hoping at least if you are from Uttar Pradesh area, maybe you would have gone, I'm hoping. Okay, so.
Yes, Subramaniam, I have been to Kumbh twice.
Oh, wonderful. So can you tell us your experience there?
Yes, it's magnificent actually. Most of the time, in the beginning, all the akhadas goes in, and then and you are not. It's not very easy access, but it's a magnificent experience actually. It's very difficult to describe in word. And many things we never thought that is alive down here. For example, all the Naga camps. Then we never seen that people are so comfortable with denouncing the whole worldly thing, and something very important which I have learned, that many people who do kalpvas, they are doing really great in their normal life, and they are professors, they are chartered accountants, they are scientists and people like that. So they go there and they do the kalpvas and stay there for more than a month or so. So this is one thing which I learned while visiting the Kumbh. And I'm in India, and I live in Varanasi.
Okay, yeah, of course. Yeah.
So whenever I get an opportunity, I visit Prayagraj.
Very good, beautiful. Okay, like I said, maybe I'll come and see you there. That's one of my list to do. Unfortunately, I have not seen Varanasi. So
I have been to Kumbh once when I was in college. In that year, the Kumbh Mela was in Nashik. So I went to college in Pune, and my best friend actually lived right on Panchvati. Right in Panchvati. So the Ram Kund, which is one of the Shahi Snan areas, that was walking distance from his home. So we went there, had a dip, and then with him I also went to Trimbakeshwar and Someshwar.
Okay.
So it was a very moving experience. But how people, really revere spirituality. When I came back to my college, many of my classmates, and mind you, these are all 21, 20-year-olds. Right. A lot of them bowed and touched my feet that you have come back from a Kumbh. And I thought I had heard that from my parents' generation, that when they went to the Kumbh, that's what happened to them. But I was very pleased that that tradition, was there even in like 1991 or 92.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I thought I saw a raised hand. So
Yeah, that was me.
Yeah.
I had an opportunity to go to Kumbh also once, and that was lucky. It was that if Modi had invited people from NRIs from all over the world, and they had organized a very big event. That was a Prayag. That whole thing experience was really amazing. I mean, meeting a lot of
Ravi,
people there.
that was the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas.
Yes.
It was held in Varanasi, and then it was, from there to Prayagraj, and then from there to Delhi and 26th January thing.
Yeah, that was an amazing experience. Even traveling the whole trip in the van and bus, and everything was arranged so well, and even the dip in the Ganges was amazing.
Right, exactly. I'll tell you now, hopefully with all the cleaning of the Ganga that is happening, there will be better flow and everything. So I think it will become, I'm hoping, this becomes more popular, and instead of maybe 150 million people or 200 million will show up instead of just 100 million. So, hopefully.
Yeah.
Okay. Thanks for all those experience. And then so I think this is also a reflection of how we ourselves within the smaller group here have so much experience, and we should be able to document it and tell other people about it. Like many people think this is all passe, out of it doesn't get covered as much. And so it's our job, our responsibility to be able to bring this out to people. Again, these are practical aspects as we go through this and bring families, having a tradition, being able to bring families and friends together. And most important, right, is it's like dharma brings us back, why we are who we are, the aspect of celebrating dharma, promotion of art, music. And I think it's probably in other places also, I'm sure they may have the kind of music that they have in other cultures is very different. If you actually listen to the lyrics, our tradition gives you amazing aspects. It's like the bhakti aspect, and within bhakti there are various rasas, so you can use all of that in music. And I think the range of possibilities that we have within the Hindu tradition is amazing. So we should learn about it and maybe actually use practical for our own advantage, right? Being able to remind us of all the better ways of doing things. So we get caught in practical aspects of the job and family, other aspects, but being able to do this, celebrating festivals, looking at something bigger than ourselves, I think it really helps and gives us a better picture of who we are and where we fit in and how we should be thinking. Deepavali, we have just gone through Deepavali as well. Like I said, I tell my kids, when we were kids, that was the only time we purchased something, right? Deepavali was the only time. Now, we can order everything within 2 clicks. You're able to get new shoes, new stuff, everything, and it gets delivered. But I'm sure many of us here, when we were kids growing up in India, it was only during Deepavali something would be purchased. School starts in June or whatever, and then we get some stuff in Deepavali. So this was the only, there were some calendar related issues as well. Now here, of course, it's much different, being able to celebrate all these festivals. And one good advantage is, Deepavali is now getting recognized across the world. Singapore, many places, Malaysia, even in Australia to some extent, it gets recognized, and more people in the US do know. Mainly people probably know Holi and Deepavali. That's it. So I think we should talk about this more. And then again, it is also Bhagavan Ram returning to Ayodhya, Naraka Chaturdashi, the killing of Narakasur. All these are aspects. I think we should make sure that we bring this out and tell these legends also to our people, right? And note that I use the word legends and our traditional stories, rather than saying we should not use the word myth, right? That is probably not. Myth is kind of a negative aspect to it. It is just a myth, not true, but we will say that's not appropriate. So I always use the word our traditional knowledge, or if maybe we can use the word legend. Right. So again, making sure that we at least know these basic shlokas just as a part of this class here. I think we should make sure that we know at least some stotras by heart, 10-15 of them for each devata, and make sure that that we teach our children about it. And along with it, the English translation, it's extremely important to tell them not just the Sanskrit stotra, but also the English meaning. And these are fantastic meanings. Never, you would not find this anywhere else. You wouldn't believe many of the stotras that the Buddhists use. They're all also actually stutis for Shiva, Avalokiteshvara. You will see a lot of commonality. It's amazing. So what I'm saying is, please make sure that you, as a teacher, you are able to learn at least 10, 12 stotras. It's very, very easy. Shouldn't take too much time. And maybe you've learned, maybe you've forgotten, but please make sure that you learn 10, 12 stotras, and you are able to teach your children and the other students you will be teaching. Again, Holi, this is probably one of the most popular festival that's across the US. Definitely, you will go to any college campus where there are lot Hindu population, you will see Holi being celebrated. But at the end of the day, it's kind of it's a very it's a coming of the spring, no doubt about it. But again, it's some of the religious aspects has been taken out. However, it is what it is. So what we need to know about Holi, coming of spring, and then the Holika Dahan. I think these are the legends we have to make sure that we bring out and we inform people. And like I said, after the Chaitra, this is the spring. We'll come Chaitra, and then I think we can probably talk about this later in some other class, making sure we learn how exactly these festivals are arranged in the year. Like I mentioned earlier, it's a combination of solar and lunar. There are some solar festivals, but mainly lunar festivals. So if we keep track of them, we'll kind of understand how our society behaved, right? So the thought is that in the olden days, the moon was a much better predictor of rain. That's the idea. There's been some research on it. And so that's why they kept both track of both the sun and the moon. And our calendar is unique. Again, these are all unique aspects of Hinduism. We should know that it takes into consideration both the lunar aspect and the solar aspect, right? We don't teach our kids that, and I think we really need to make sure that we bring out these points to our children. And in addition to just music, all the arts, there are so many arts that are there. I think, again, that's why we call ourselves a civilization, because everything, if the Ramayana, right, if you just don't have Ramayana, or you just don't go read the Bible kind of thing, when they don't have anything following it. But our Ramayana is fully imbibed in the dance, the Natya Shastra, everything you have. It brings forth everything that is related in the Puranas, in the Vedas, in all the local practices also. So it's very important, right? When people learn Bharatanatyam, they should be told, hey, look where this comes from. And so that you are actually performing a bhakti, all the way, again, the rasas. So all these are things that is very unique to Hinduism. Nobody else has such a comprehensive view of all human practice. Right? So that is what makes us a civilization. And the Samaveda, what happens is when there's a Yagna, there are 3 or 4 major Ritviks, they call it, right? Ritviks who are there who will do it. And the Samaveda is a singing aspect. It's a lot of it is shlokas from the Rig Veda, but it is sung. There are many ways of doing it. And so from the times of Vedic times itself, the concept of singing, the concept of notes, and that is how the concept of organized music has come. Music, the way we know it, is very new in Europe. It's all very new. They didn't have a lot of these aspects. So whereas with us, the tradition is huge, running to thousands of years. Okay, so I think every time we do this social arts, when we introduce kids to arts, we should spend a little bit more time, read up upon it, and then tell our children about it. So I think it's extremely important that we do this, rather than just make it a simple art for its art's sake, but you should show the background, the thought, the history, the text that go behind it. All this gives context. And I think we should not underestimate all our audiences. That is basically the kids we teach. So we should make sure that we bring this out to the all the people who interact with and teach. Okay. And that needs, and I think we'll be covering some of these subjects, but if we don't, I think again you have the responsibility to be able to do some research on your own and be able to present it. And we'll also, I think in one of the later episodes, maybe we should give you sources of what are the valid sources to pick from, rather than take anything just from the web, right? So, and I will assure you this lot of this info, most of this info is put together by, or I should say all this info has been put together by Vishal, and you can be assured that this is all substantiated and great. It has, the references would be available for almost everything, right? So you can take the information that's available here for granted. And I think we discussed this slide here on a Tirtha Yatra already, again, for like the Kumbh. This is also, as mentioned, like I mentioned earlier, this is also in the Dharma Shastra, also the references to this. So temples, rivers, ponds, lakes, they've been built. We have local practices. We have the Grama Devatas, everything for the which are important for a village, a town. In fact, within Bangalore city, right where I'm from, every part of the what has happened is Bangalore basically has grown around cities. So every city used to have a Grama Devata. So now there are temples there, and there are local areas which have festivals for the local Grama Devata. So this is true all across India. And we just think of Bangalore, some big city, we have lost a lot of the practices, but many are still maintained. So we have to keep this. And one kind of sad thing, I suppose, or maybe we should, opportunity for us is to be able to have a Tirtha Yatra within the United States. I think we should be able to bring startup, maybe the first temple that was started, I think in Pittsburgh temple. Then there's a huge temple in the south here in Houston. Then of course there's one in Minnesota, there's one in California. So maybe all these 4 or 5 major temples, we should make sure they're part of a way we create a yatra for across these 4. I think we should restart, I think, and have practices for North America as well, just like how we have for India. Again, I'm sure one of my, again, pilgrimage on the yatra is very important. On my list is Kailash Yatra. Hopefully, when all the issues there in between China and India have worked out, I will get a chance to go to Kailash again. That's on my list of things to do. See the Kumbh, go to Kailash. These are all my things to do. But we should make sure that we inform our kids about all these various Tirtha Yatras as well. Okay. And this is again another important aspect, right? If you go to Europe, there are castles maybe, and that's about it. They're not really it's not like people, they visit out of just such tourism. Whereas the Indian subcontinent, and again, that's one other word we use is the subcontinent. The Indian subcontinent has so many places, from Kashmir to Kanyakumari, Kutch to Kohima, huge number of temples, the various Shakti Peeth, the various Shankara mathas, various mathas of various kinds. I really think we should tell people about it. For example, many are in Pakistan too. Unfortunately, we don't have easy access to them. All the way from Balochistan into Afghanistan, there are into up to Assam and Nagaland, Arunachal Pradesh. So, and all this have the Sanskritic tradition, Dharmic tradition as a background. So huge. The number of options we have is incredible. So whichever place you are from in India, when you go, please make sure you take your children or tell the other people about it, how important that is. And I think each of us here has a responsibility to be a little bit of an ambassador and tell people. And one of the things when we have Sanskrit classes and we tell them that, look, you don't tell people, we make sure we tell all the people who learn Sanskrit that they should tell others that they are learning Sanskrit, right? So because then that itself spreads. Oh, you're learning Sanskrit. Same way, I think when you're in this class, please make sure you tell other people that you are learning about the Hindu heritage, that you have been able to collect a lot of information together, and then that itself people will ask you questions, and then that gives you an opportunity to share them and get their views as well. So please make sure you tell everybody, at least 5-10 people around you, that you are in this Hindu heritage, where you're attending almost a year worth of classes every week. Okay. again, like I said, most of places, we do have temples here in the US. And I'm sure there are, many places which have small temples, anything. But even then, even if you don't have a temple, I'm sure you can have a puja at home. That's the beauty of the Hindu tradition. So if you do not have anything at home, please make sure that you visit a mandir. Okay. And like I said, the temple, it's very important to know the difference between a temple and a church or a mosque. Very different. The concepts are very different. In the other religions, especially Christianity and Muslims, Islam, they're congregational. They do not have a God which is present on earth or anything. So they're waiting for they've got their things such as final judgment and so on. But here we have very different. To us, a temple is the living house of a devata. So that's why there has to be a continuous puja. There we have to practices to be maintained there according to the agamas. So we need to make sure that we follow that and inform our children about it. So it's not the same as any other religious, we use the word religion, that the church and the temple are all the same. They are not. So we should know these details and be able to inform people. Okay. And especially when we have visitors who come to the temple, we should make sure that we have documentation to tell them these differences also, because a lot of people who come to the temple are kind of, they will be a part of a school trip or something educational. So if we are not able to tell them these differences, they would think, yeah, this is just yet another, church. They've got some images in stone, that's it, they go away. But instead, we need to make sure that we are able to tell them the actual conceptual and differences and the differences in approach and principle. Again, as I was said, we have in India, basically when the temples were built, there are two styles, what you call the Dravida style and the northern style, right? So you'll see that the Dwarkadish Mandir there, that's typically it goes more triangular, and it has that height very slightly different. And then one of the temples, for example, on the left, the Tirupati, that's more of the southern Dravida style. And then again, you see the picture in Pashupatinath, built very differently. So please be, aware of all these differences. And why, again, like I said, these are also documented. There are Sanskritas, there are, they're called Sthapati. A Sthapati is basically an architect, right? There's Sthapatya texts also that are available, which tell you the measurement of how a Shilpakala, how the Murti has to be created, length of it. If the hand is this much, how much should the foot be? All those are ratios. They're all standardized. Temples are not just some arbitrary way of building. They're not. They're really they have specific rules that have to be followed. They're in the agamas. Not that we follow them everything these days, but at least many of these standards are there. They're documented. Okay. In fact, there is a temple in China. Probably 1,000 years ago, there were traders from Tamil Nadu, right? They used to trade. And so there's a temple in China, actual temple in China. It's incredible. So a lot of these practices, until about 300-400 years ago, they were widespread in Japan, Indonesia, China, but now they're all lost. But, it is, the temples are all flourishing in India. But however, there are other issues there. For example, how all the practices that they have, we need to be able to tell our children about this. Okay. Another important aspect is satsang, being able to pull people together. Hard these days, but however, I think again, music probably brings us back. And if we can form groups and music, we should be able to have a good satsang and a bhajan. And these days, even everything is available on YouTube also. So please share that. And like I said, it's a group activity. And if you bring like-minded people, it's extremely important in the United States. Specifically, I'll tell you, even when we are at work, when I speak with a lot of my friends, they're just loners. They have some family, they will have one or two, they might have some relationship with parents here and there, they all live separately. It is very hard. It's kind of sometimes sad. They're in the 60s and 70s, and they've got, they might have an older parent also, but they're very little. They're kind of almost very lonely for various reasons, because they don't have the range of options, the range of things that they can do, what is available in the Hindu tradition. So just for our own life, to make it a little bit more rich and advantages. I think we need to be able to do this. I think it's just for selfish reasons, right? These things are very important. Again, another to keep in mind is now as we come to the gurus and acharyas, there is also guru. I think again the living tradition. There are lots of excellent gurus. These days, of course, there are some main communities that we can follow, like the Chinmaya Mission, maybe, or the BAPS or the ISKCON. Many of them are there. I think it's also important to make sure that we tell our people about why the aspect of a guru is important. So when we pick a guru, also in the past, they would be very knowledgeable. They had to have some kind of experience. They would have known, or they would have studied. So there are two kinds, right? One is, for example, someone like a Kabir or Namdev or something. They were different kinds of gurus. Whereas, however, then you have other people who will teach you the scriptural aspect of it. So we need to make sure what kind of gurus there are. For example, in, let's say, something like art of living these days, they're modern gurus. So we need to be aware of all these are modern gurus. They have different ways. So if you were to just go participate in a mass group satsang with them, that's also fine. But even there, they have some levels. You go, you learn, you become part of their group, and then you kind of raise in the develop in that community, and then you are able to do many things, right? You probably have some kind of a study, some kind of a practice there. So all of these sampradayas have different various aspects, but very important to know that there are some main traditional aspects which are generally very good, useful for us, which is all the Vedanta. Generally, Vedanta is the most common one. So if you were to practice, so make sure that your guru is good in some specific knowledge area. And like I said, these negative things that also happens is it's very easy these days to kind of fall into one kind of a mindset, like a cult, and not think of anything else. I think we should grow past it, because what is also happening is there are many people who kind of accuse these gurus of many things. Sometimes it may be true, sometimes mostly it will not be true also. So we don't know. So we have to make sure that, we ourselves, as an educated bunch of people, we have to be very careful what the behavior of the gurus are. And then we also have to kind of grow a little bit more, and to make sure that, that we take a pan-Hindu view of all our practices. Oh, yeah, I think, can you all hear me clearly? Because,
yes.
Yeah. Trupti ji is not able. I just saw the verse. Okay.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. All right. So again, like these are also, there are large numbers of pathshalas, ashramas, mathas. The picture Vishalji has there, right, is from Hinduism Today from Hawaii. They have a magazine called Hinduism Today. You should subscribe to it. They have beautiful pictures, gives you a lot of information. I urge you all to please subscribe to it, right? I think you'll be informed. You'll definitely a source of information there. And one other important terminology I would like you to know about it is, see that he's used a more attract to SBNR, right? SBNR stands for spiritual but not religious. Have you heard a lot of people say this, right? Oh, I'm spiritual, but I'm not religious. So there's certain truth to it, but there's also a certain aspect of it which is not correct. For example, when you say spiritual, what exactly? You should ask the next question. What exactly are you thinking, right? And you will notice when you poke and when you do that analysis, you will find most of that spirituality comes from the Hindu tradition. They will not say they're Hindus, but they will say, oh, I'm not spiritual. I'm spiritual, but not religious. Doesn't make sense really, because religion and dharma are kind of different. But so, are you a dharmic person? That's what we have to think. Is this a dharmic? Are you attracted to the dharmic practices? Are you someone who has got that mindset to, vairagya, to focus on vairagya maybe a little bit? Are you in what stage of your life are you in? Are you are you in the grihastha-ashrama or a sannyasa-ashrama? What is your aptitude? So these are all the concepts we have. So we can look at a person from a dharmic framework. But instead of that, we've got this term called SBN, right? Spiritual but not religious. So next time someone tells you that, please ask them, what do you mean by it? When you say spirituality, what do you mean by that, right? And so then how does this affect you, or what are you thinking? And then you will see that most of it actually falls within the Hindu realm. So unfortunately, for various reasons, our own lack of institutions, we are not able to bring this forth. But I think we as individuals can make sure that we are aware of these issues. Okay. So for example, people might say, oh, I'm just a yogi, I do yoga. Okay, why? What are the principles behind yoga? You know, what is it that Patanjali says? Then you will notice that, a lot of it, of course, it is in the Hindu tradition itself. So finally, we come to the end. So I think, like I mentioned, what we have is such unique aspect. There's nothing which is comparable at all, starting from music and dance to the Tirtha Yatras, the architecture, the category of thinking that we have is so unique. So, I think it's a great opportunity that we're all coming together to learn about this. So please make sure that you are able to spend more time to learn more about this. And one of the things that we were thinking earlier in the class is that so far, Vishalji has done a great job, right, pulling all this information together for us. And I wanted us to think about an assignment. Please think of pulling together information about 10-15 slides that you yourself have learned when you're asked to talk about Hinduism, right? From what the dharma, when you say dharma, what is it? Imagine you're speaking to people who don't know anything about it, like, maybe second generation kids, or generally other people, other Americans who do not know. Make sure that if you can pull together 10-15 slides and how you can talk for 20 minutes. Would you be able to do that? Please take that as an assignment over the next, we've got until next 4 or 5 weeks. If you can do that, that will be great, because I think that should be the takeaway from all the effort that has gone in. I can tell you that the information collected here has been done over many years. Vishal is a scholarly person, so he reads a lot, all academic stuff, all the original sources. So using all that, has put this together. So I would like to request all of you participating here to be able to put together a slide deck. I think that will be a great practice. There will not be right or wrong. We can review, we can ask questions. And I think as we have, the past few weeks provided a lot of information. If you go to the Google site, you'll find many PPTs. Use that. There is also a link I will give you. There is called Concise Encyclopedia of Hinduism. You can take it. And then I think if you put together 10-15 slides, I think it will be a great learning opportunity. Would you all be able to do that?
Yes.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, that's wonderful. Yeah, please consider that, do that. And I think you can also upload it to the website. We can probably give you some location later on. Yeah, please consider it, and it'll be fantastic. And we can review, and you can feel free to ask questions. Any other comments, questions? I think this is the last slide here. Any other comments, questions you have?
Great topic today, to teach them about Dharma and show them all these things.
Sorry, could you please repeat? I couldn't hear you. I mean, it was muffled a bit.
Sorry, I'll just put the volume maybe. No, I'm just saying that it's great, It was very good topic today to teach our kids about Dharma and show them all these things, because like even in North America, we have beautiful temples, replica of Indian temples too, in a small way. But we should take them there. That's it. We are good one. We have Shringeri here, and that Shringeri temple empowered me to go to real Shringeri temple, because it was the
yeah, exactly. That's true. Yeah, we have temples in all directions now. It
was his first PT established, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know that it was in Pakistan too. Some of this thing.
Yeah, no. There were.
What was in Pakistan? I never heard about it.
Oh, there were many temples there. Chandanji, you got any?
Yeah, it was all united first. Afterward, it became Pakistan.
Yeah, there are Shakti Sthal, many temples were there. Like I said, Hingaj Mata. Yeah.
And I felt so great going to Sringeri. I could feel that spirit alive there, Shankaracharya spirit. All those things are there, you know. Like it was, I stayed in close by to ashram, and I used to go. I'm into Mata and I used to go every day there. Then Corona started. I couldn't do anything. I had to go back, and I got stuck in India. This was my spiritual trip to do to Banana, to go there and do things. Like I live in Dehradun, so I've been to Haridwar, Rishikesh many times. I think once in Kumbh Mela when we were very little too. But like I haven't been to Banaras, and my family doesn't want me to go alone. It's North India is not safe, but Banaras. Like I don't know who's there.
I would, yeah. I mean, I
I
think
was very safe in South India, that I know. I
Yeah.
had no fear, nothing.
Yeah.
Look, traveling like a local, eating local food, everything was fine.
Actually,
I had no problem there.
okay. So
Yeah,
one
so
thing,
there are about Pakistan. I just wanted to mention that there are many ancient Tirth Kshetras and mandirs in Pakistan. One, of course, you all know Hingalaj Mata. So whenever there is a list of the 52 Shakti Peeths, the Hingalaj Mata is always actually listed first. And then, you know, on Lahore was founded by Love, Love, the son of Bhagwan Ram. Its twin
Oh,
Asur was
you
founded
were
by
telling
Kush.
us, oh my God.
Yeah, Kush. And then the uncle of Pandavas was Shalya. You know, it's after his name that Sialkot is named, Shalya Kot.
Oh,
So Pakistan has a and the original Prahlad Puri Mandir, where Bhagwan Vishnu incarnated from the pillar, is still there in Multan. And, you know, it's in ruins now, but that pillar is still there. So,
wow.
so
I know
going
that we belong, I'm Sindhi, so I know our rich heritage culture there. Lot of things are there, like old, all this. My mother used to tell us, my grandfather used to tell us, and still we read about it. But I
Yeah.
didn't know about all those things you're telling me.
Right. I mean, yeah, correct. There are many, like, you know, for example, Panini, the beginnings of Sanskrit grammar, right, is close to Lahore. Yeah, there. I mean, huge numbers of many places there. Chandanji, I think you raised your hand. You have a comment?
Yeah, it was a wonderful, knowing this all in a very concise form, Subramaniamji. Thank you. I have one comment, a suggestion, you can say. The festival chart which you have shown, that is very nice one actually.
Yeah.
Very
And
good.
if it can be, the kids are more into the festival. I mean, for example, they want to celebrate each and every festival. If that can be posterized,
yeah,
and then put in, somewhere in the drawing room or somewhere, then they, keep on asking, they will keep on asking, when is this festival, when is this festival, and this. So this is one way, to give them an opportunity to go into, our tradition, I think.
Yeah.
So,
No,
because if they will see it very regularly, they will keep on asking, okay, we have celebrated Raksha Bandhan. So when is now the Krishna Janmashtami?
Yeah,
So
exactly.
if they will see it, they will keep on asking, and this is very good way to actually rope them into the culture.
Yeah.
Second thing to comment on the Veena ji, the whole India is very safe. Feel free to visit any place you'd like to. It's North India is also safe.
They don't let us go alone. I went to, without telling them to, like I used to teach in Rishikesh before marriage. So that day, I was there from Canada. So I said, I'm just going for a walk. I'm going to, they said, but I took a bus. I went, I don't know how I reached to Rishikesh. It was Kartik Amavasya, and I took a dip. Like, I don't know, it's to believe, but it was so much, you felt so good about it, going there. I went in a very difficult way. I found something right.
Exactly.
But then I got suggested what you're doing there.
Yeah.
Because going alone,
Yeah. I mean, I understand. I'll tell, like I said, yeah, please do visit the north also. I think generally.
So I want to go to Banaras and everything.
Yeah. We got a few more people raising, Arunji, and then the yoga school. Please go ahead.
I just posted the video link by Vishalji. That's all about Sindh and the temples there and their culture and the history. So that if you can watch it, you will know that, okay, what are the temples. He had put it very beautifully. So
okay. Yeah, beautiful, excellent. Thank you for the reference there.
Thank you. I just clicked
Yeah.
to that one.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, in the yoga school, please. You raised your hand, please go ahead. No, I don't think. Okay. All right, Chandanji, do you have any other comments still? You have your hand raised. Okay, very good. And then I think that's all for the day now. Please feel free to ask questions. And I think one of the things we suggested is please pull together a presentation. We'll ask you maybe another 15 days from now, 2 weeks from now. Let us know how you're doing. Fairly straightforward. There's a lot of information Vishalji has given. So please bring it up, and I will also give you a link for the Encyclopedia of Hinduism. I'll post it on the WhatsApp group. So please review that, and it will be wonderful if you could please pull together a presentation on your own. Okay.
Is that the Swami Harshanand encyclopedia?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Very beautiful encyclopedia.
Yeah, it's very simple. And so you search for a word, then it gives you some small write-up. So you just take that. So you have an authentic source. I think it is rkmut. I'll give you the link later. Yeah, but you can pick that, and actually a lot of sources. I mean, huge number of slides has been provided by Vishalji also. So please review that, and you should be able to pull information together. Okay. All right. So I think we've come to the end of this class here, unless you have any other questions. So we'll say again. Sarve bhavantu sukhina, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschid dukkha bhag bhave. Om shanti shanti shanti. Shubharatri, and we will meet again next week. Then thank you.
Shubharatri.
Right.
Shubharatri.